Welcome to Literary Libations with Librarians. And this time, since August happens to be Happiness Happens Month, we'll be sharing books that make us happy. As we're sharing these titles, if you'd like to get your hands on any of them, there's several ways to go about doing so. The first is to contact your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and speak to the staff there, and they'd be more than happy to assist you. The next is to get online to our online catalog and request the items yourself. This will give you access to hardcover and paperbacks and other physical versions of these titles. And some of our titles are available digitally as downloadable audiobooks or ebooks through one of our two platforms. The first is Overdrive, which you may also hear referred to as Libby. Libby is the name of Overdrive's app. And Overdrive provides access to downloadable ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, and also magazines. The second platform is Hoopla, which provides access to downloadable ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And when you're on Hoopla, make sure to look for the little lightning bolt. If the lightning bolt is next to a title, that means there's not a wait for that item and you can download it immediately. My name is Jennifer Graneski, and I am the community librarian at the Dundee Branch Library. And since August is Happiness Happens Month, and that's what we're speaking about this time, we are going to do our introductory question as, what's a happy thing that's happened to you this month? And for me, I was able to take a couple of days off earlier this month to spend time doing some fun stuff with my 12, almost 13-year-old son. And that's always good because he actually still likes spending time with me. So yay for that. And we went to Henry Ford and Greenfield Village. And at Henry Ford in particular, we really enjoyed the Jim Henson exhibit. We were able to get selfies with Kermit and Bert and Ernie and Beaker and Dr. Honeydew. And so we really enjoyed that. And I also realized that my son grew up in the time of Sesame Street with Elmo and not Grover, because we walked by Grover and he did not know who Grover was. So he was like, who's that one? I was like, that's Grover. And no, he had no idea. He's like, I don't know. Oh, and then they had like the monster at the end of this book was out there in the display too that has Grover in it. And I was like, don't you remember reading this? And he goes, no, clearly we did not read that book enough. So
were these the actual puppets?
Yes.
Display? Oh,
yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was very, I mean, they're behind glass and everything.
Oh,
so our selfies are with, through the glass. And then they had a little section where you could make your own Muppet. So Tony and I worked together to make our own Muppet with different noses and eyes and stuff. So we had a really good time. I really appreciate these times because I know the time's coming when he's not going to be as excited when I drag him off to do something together. So that's my happiness moment for this month. Also with us this week is Kristen Brown, a reference librarian at the Bedford branch. And what is your happy moment for this month, Kristen?
Well, so far my happy moment has been my birthday, and Kelly may have a similar happy moment because we share a birthday. So we were born on the same day. Our minutes are actually the same as well, but we are not the same age. There's actually 5 years in between us. So we spent the day after together, and we got tattoos together as sisters do sometimes, and we were on our the day before our actual birthday, we did a really nice birthday dinner for my nephew, whose birthday is also on our birthday. So we had lots of birthday festivities at the beginning of this month. So that made me super happy.
Nice. It's a birthday month.
It is.
And also with us this time is Kelly Beister. And what made you happy this month, Kelly?
Mine's the same as Kristen's. I think it's fitting that August is Happiness Happens since we were born in the month of happiness happening. I mean, come on. Also, like Kristen said, my youngest son, his birthday is the same day. And so that was the happiest. I mean, I like spending time with my sister and getting matching tattoos, but I really loved seeing my son in his first birthday restaurant experience where they call out his name. And he's obsessed with Mario Brothers right now. He's 8, just turned 8. And so he likes pasta because that's what Mario eats and he needs all the pasta. So we went to the spaghetti warehouse and his mind was blown and there was so much pasta. But what wrapped it all up was when the waitress just came out and screamed to everyone that it was his birthday, and like a true Leo, he's like, look at me, but not really, but look at me. And so everyone sang, and it was great. And so that was my happiest moment, was seeing him have that time, that spotlight for himself.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. And I forgot to mention, Kelly is the branch technician at South Rockwood. And also with us this week is Joyce Tapke, who is a processing clerk at our administrative building. So she makes sure that all the stuff that comes in gets out to the shelves in a way that you'll be able to find it. And she's also a magician at fixing stuff. So if something gets damaged, we send it to Joyce and she does her magic and sends it back so the next person can use it.
Yeah, the magic wand. That's magic wand.
Yes. And what has made you happy this month, Joyce?
Well, you'll learn when you hear about my books that I've chosen. I believe that happiness is stronger after adversity. This last week, we had some major storms come through. I live in the city of Milan, and Milan was hit very hard with storms. Winds I've heard, up to 80 miles an hour. We've had some very tall trees topple. Most of us lost power. And the happiness was watching my community come together. Not only did we get help from Dundee and Saline coming in and bringing their people in to help clean everything up, but strangers came out, helping each other, giving each other coffee, saying, hey, I'm going to have coffee on this street at this time. And I have a chainsaw. Do you need help cleaning things up? The businesses were great. We had free breakfasts at one of the churches, and we had businesses giving out ice and dry ice for the coolers so that we wouldn't lose everything. And I think my favorite moment was when a wedding party could not have their wedding in the venue because the venue had lost power. So Zilke Farm Kitchen, who hosts a sunflower festival this time every year, let them get married in the field of sunflowers. So yeah. And of course, on a very selfish note, I'm very happy that my power came back on after 4.5 days.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I think that makes all of us happy to hear those things. Yes. We need to hear more of those things about, there's a lot of good out there.
Yes, there is.
There are bad things happening, but there are a lot of good people looking out for their neighbors and looking out for their community. Thank you for sharing that. And to start sharing their happy titles, let's go ahead and get started with Kristen. I'll have you share your happy titles first.
All right. So, along with it being my birthday month, fall is right around the corner and Halloween is right around the corner. And if you know me, I am pretty much obsessed with Halloween. I usually have to talk myself down, but I usually start decorating at like the end of August, early September. So with my books, there's a general Halloween theme. There's so many books that make me happy. So I just thought, what books are making me happy right now? A ton of Halloween books. So I'll go ahead and start with Vampire Loves by Johann Spar, and he is a really great illustrator and author. I read that he has done over 100 graphic novels beginning in the late 90s. And this one is a 4-part series. It's all in French except for this book is the only one that's been translated into English, which is a shame because I absolutely adore this book. And you can see it's a graphic novel. It's based on Ferdinand the vampire, who is super awesome. He's a solid vampire who is super classy. He's just a good guy. He is on the fritz with his girlfriend. Her name is Lonnie. She's a wood creature. There's a lot of mythical creatures in this graphic novel, and it's just about him and his friends, and he's just trying to find somebody to love, somebody that's going to love him and treat him right. He has a cat named Emotep, who you can see in the visuals, and it's just really quirky writing. It's very strange, so if you're not super into like weird quirky characters with crazy storylines, this might not be for you. If you've watched other episodes in the past, I've talked about a graphic novel that was called Goodbye Chunky Rice by Craig Thompson, and it's very similar to this. All of the characters in this one, though, they all meet each other at certain parts in the book. And so he's just a real great vampire. One perfect example of that is he only bites people with one fang so that it can pass off as a mosquito bite. He doesn't really want to hurt anybody. He's just trying to do what he can. So I highly recommend this book if you're just looking for a really fun, even if it's not a Halloween read. Honestly, I read this book back in like April just because I love these books. So great choice. Highly recommend that. And the author kind of weaves in some of his other graphic novels with these too. So there's a couple other ones that he has that you can read based off of this one, which is nice if you're looking for something to jump into that has a couple different things in it. The next one I'll talk about is Bob Shea's The Scariest Book Ever. I was doing a search because I'm, again, already in the Halloween mood, and I'm also an artist, super big into illustration, so I just look up a whole bunch of children's books, and then I just kind of make a list and start requesting them as I get closer to the Halloween season. So Bob Shea, super awesome author, super awesome illustrator. He's hilarious. His humor is great. And in this book, it follows the main character there is the ghost. And when you open up the book, so I have this book checked out right now, but if you open up the book, there's these like kind of scary looking trees. And so you pass that page and then you meet this ghost, and the ghost says, "Ooh, did you see those trees a couple pages back? Like, they looked really spooky. Maybe we should go check them out." But he's got this juice in his hands, and then he goes, "Whoops, oh man, I spilt my juice on me. I guess I can't go to those trees with you. Why don't you go ahead and check them out, and then you tell me what they look like?" And so the whole book is about this ghost who, as the reader, you get glimpses of what's in the forest. You get glimpses of what's in the woods, and it's not what you think it would. It's not very spooky, but you're trying to tell that to the ghost, and the ghost is like, "Oh no, there's spooky things in there, right? Like there's one of the pictures, there's a dark hole. Well, what did you see? A dark hole? Nothing good ever comes out of a dark hole, right? It's okay, you don't have to go back." And then he says, "You can just stay here with me, and you can help with the haunted housework. We'll tell spooky stories and clean the bathroom." That's scary, right? So just fun, interactive things. If you've read any other of Bob Shea's books, very similar. I love his color palette in this one. So it's a spooky kid story, but it's also super funny, and the illustrations are great. So highly recommend this one. It's a great kids book to get them involved in it.
All Bob Shea books are happy books.
It's true. I love everything that he does. He's so funny.
Yeah, he really does leave it open for interpretation. So even if you're not the kind of reader with your children, or even to yourself, like I will just read this out loud to myself because I enjoy it. But if you normally don't like reading those books, it's really hard not to read in character or get silly with Bob Shea books. He just opens that up for you. And then the last one I'll talk about is one that we don't have. You can get it through our Melcat services, but I am obsessed with this book. I mean, talk about a book that makes me happy. I love this book. Rebecca Green is one of my favorite illustrators. This was actually her first illustrated and written children's book. And it just follows that girl there. Her name is Bellis. And it just talks about, what do you do if you meet a ghost? How do you make friends with a ghost? What is a ghost like? What kind of music do they like? What do they eat? And so it's just really cute. She illustrates a diagram that talks about all the parts of a ghost and how do you not scare a ghost? What are some things that might look like it's a ghost, but really it's not, like a towel on a doorknob? That's not a ghost, right? So you can see in these visuals, ghosts like collecting things outside. They like jamming to music. They like to go trick-or-treating with you. Super cute. Love her illustrations. It's just a really cute, cozy book. And I feel like if you are into art and you enjoy reading children's books also, she originally wrote it for adults. So even though it's a children's book, when she originally started writing it, she just did it for herself. She didn't even publicize it as a children's book. So it's also really great for adults too, if you're interested in that.
Thank you, Kristen. Those make me very happy too. And let's have Joyce share her happy titles next.
Well, as I said, I do believe that sometimes you're happiest when you see a character come from adversity to be what we would call normal, and it just makes them happy. The first two books actually are part 1 and part 2 of the same story. It's The War That Saved My Life and The War I Finally Won. It centers on Ada, is a little girl in London in the beginning of World War II, and she and her brother Jamie end up in the countryside with the evacuation. Now, Ada had to actually sneak away. Her mother, when she was born with a club foot, and her mother refused to have it repaired, and she also blamed Ada, abused her, both physically and emotionally. And Ada took the evacuation of her brother as a chance to escape. So she and her brother end up in the countryside. They end up in the home of Susan, who is dealing with her own grief. Susan has lost her dear friend Becky and is now living in a town that she feels very ostracized. So these three end up together, and they become kind of a family. Ada learns that not everybody thinks that she's a monster because she has a bad foot, and she finds that she can actually move around if somebody actually hands her a pair of crutches. And she becomes friends, with the Lord and Lady Thornton's daughter. She becomes friends. She learns to ride a pony, and she becomes healthier, and she begins to heal, but there's still that psychological damage. In the second book, it's just a continuation of the story. She is now actually removed from her mother's care. She and Ada now live with Susan permanently, and the war is ramping up. They begin to lose people they know to the war, both people who are serving and, because it's London, people to bombs that they knew. And as she grows, she heals. She starts healing people around her, becoming this warm, wonderful person. They end up having to take in a German girl who is a Jewish refugee. And of course, people are not at all convinced that that German girl ought to be anywhere near their town, but she becomes friends with her. And by the end of the book, she is able to help others heal. And she and her brother Jamie and Susan become a cohesive family. And you just get the warm fuzzies by the time it's over. The second book is called Giddle's Journey, and I love this book. It is a children's book with the most gorgeous illustrations. Giddle is 9 years old, and she and her mother are immigrating to America, except her mother is turned away because she has an infection in her eye. So she sends Giddle on ahead, and Giddle must now cross the sea alone. And she's told that when she gets there, her mother hands her, she said, this paper has my cousin's name on it, and they'll find him and he'll take care of you until I can join you later. But by the time she gets to America, she's held onto that scrap of paper so tightly that it's just an ink smear. So they have to try to figure out how to get a hold of her mother's cousin, which they do. I don't want to give away the whole story, but it is a children's book. It's not very long. But look at those illustrations. They're absolutely gorgeous. And in the end, Giddle and her mother are reunited in America, and they're able to live out their lives here. It's actually based on a couple of true stories. So it's just a lovely, lovely book, and I love looking at it.
Those illustrations remind me of Patricia Polacco's.
Very
style.
similar, yeah, the watercolor style.
Absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Thank you, Joyce. And let's have Kelly share her happy titles next.
I'm not sure which one you have first on the screen, so I guess I'll just roll.
I was going to say you do whatever you want.
I'll do me.
That's right.
I'll start with that one anyways. Good morning, good night is the first book I'll talk about, Little Pep Talks for Me and You. I found this while I was in the early stages of planning some self-help book clubs, which no one was interested in pre-COVID. Maybe they are now. I should give it a stab again, but I'm happy that I tried because I found this book and it made me happy. I was found myself constantly taking pictures of the pages and sending them to Kristen in the morning for inspiration, but then COVID hit and I got lazy, so sorry for that, Kristen. But inside the book, it's amazing. They're just little messages to pep you up, and generally the good mornings on one side, good nights on the same. A lot of times the messages are the same, but they're just closing them up, you know, or opening it for you in the morning, closing it up in the evening. I have an attention span of a gnat, so I have a really hard time sitting down to read self-help books or like, you know, inspirational books. Even listening to them is like, ugh, I can't. So I really felt a pull to this book because they are just little pep talks, and that's what I need sometimes, is just like a little pep talk that says, hey man, you got it going on. I picked out some that really spoke to me. This one is, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're not perfect. You never will be. You keep growing and messing up and learning, and your quirks become strengths, and you are so much better than perfect love. And then the good night, I don't know exactly how to tell you this, but you're not perfect. You never will be. You keep growing and messing up and learning, but today's F up becomes a turning point. Once you survive it and see it behind you, you leave perfect in the dust. Love, you keep going. So it's the same message, but closes it up for the day to kind of put an ending to your day. They're just sweet, lovely, inspiring pep talks that, you know, sometimes we need in a busy time or a worrisome time. But especially with everything going on, I find myself picking this up and looking at it regularly. So good morning, good night, if you need some little pep talks for yourself, and do what I do, keep them on your phone in a folder, and then when you need them, just open them up or send them to, you know, your friends. But don't be lazy like me.
I love these even more though because of who wrote them also, because I feel like he is such a wholesome person. Like I feel happy.
I forgot to say the author. Yeah, Lynn.
He is.
Yeah.
So for him to be writing these messages, I feel that much more.
Agreed. More of a pull. Yeah. The second book that I will talk about is, I gotta check the screen. Oh yeah. Yep. Man, we're on the same page. I have them in the same order as you do on the screen. I should never doubt you. It's Strange Planet. So I was introduced to Strange Planet on Instagram, I think, but then I don't know how. Jennifer and I found a common, like we were like, hey, did you hear about this? And we were like, oh my God, we love this. And then we got Kristen on board too. So she kind of knows. And Joyce, I'm pretty sure you're going to get on board now too. So Strange Planet. Do you love it? See?
I've not read that one, but I've read Strange Planet. I believe the Planet of Strange Creatures. I'm not sure of the exact. That's it.
Don't worry, I have it.
Children's book.
The perks of my job is I get to see all this stuff first.
Yes. So Strange Planet started, like, Nathan Pyle is the creator, and they're little you know, aliens, little celestial beings that come down to Earth. And what'd you say?
They're beings.
Beings. I'm sorry. Beings.
B-E-I-N-G.
Oh,
they
yeah,
can't be
right.
aliens because, you know, they're just them. They're just beings.
Touche. Sorry. My apologies. Yeah. Beings.
No problem, man.
I get so wrapped up in, you know, everything that's going on that I don't. Anyways. So, you know, they don't know the language, the Earth language, the Earth word. So their comics are just hilarious because they're explaining everyday things in long, you know, overly worded ways. So one of my favorites I put on here, he's getting a he's getting a tattoo. So he's like, hey, do you want to observe the art permanently on your body? I assume I will frequently. True. Your favorite animal? You remembered. No, I deduced it by observing your back. The art is effective. I told you it would be, the tattoo artist says.
Oh, I don't know what it is about them. They make me so happy. And also there's one where about their vacuum cleaner and they call it the roll suck machine. And so now Tony and I always refer to it. Did you roll suck this week? Have you roll sucked the carpet? Yeah.
I
love a lot of things. And I will say that these are actually okay to let children read.
Yes.
So far, I have not come across one that has anything where you'd be like, oh, so they're family appropriate. Yeah.
This one was my favorite too, where they're explaining like birthdays and like the balloons. And then also surprise birthday party. That's what they're getting ready for. So, you know, obscure yourselves. This place must appear abandoned. We must convince our friend we have all forgotten this special day. This must be a real low point to accentuate the joy. I'll now use darkness to complete our thoughtful deception.
So thoughtful. So thoughtful.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is the most festive way to contain our breath. This will be so meaningful. It truly shows our friend what we have in here, our powerful lungs. Yes, our lungs.
Yes. Oh, true friendship.
So this is another good one if you need a little pep talk, you know, but you just need a little bit of funny in your life. Like these are really good. The book is amazing, but also Instagram, like he puts stuff on there all the time. He has merch, which I'm proud to say I'm an owner of a tea, a tea bag, like a, I can't think of the word.
I don't know what they call it. Oh, like
steeper, a tea steeper.
I was like, dispenser, like I'm a bean now. I can't think of the right words.
I know, right?
Here, dispense your tea. Your leaves, dispense your leaves.
I used it quite often this winter too during my tea drinking, you know. So that was it just makes me happy. So then he put out a kid's book, that's based on a cat and the sneaking, hiding, vibrating creature. So Kristen, your girls came in this morning to see me before we opened the library, and I pulled this one out, and it was hilarious talking to them about it because I was like, so what do you think they're talking about? Because they refer to their parental beings as life givers. And so I said, who do you think their life giver is? And Celia goes, I'm not going to tell you. And I thought, well, it's okay to guess. And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm just not going to tell you. And I was like, okay. So I was like, how about, you know, it's your mom? She's like, yep, that's what I was going to say. So this is a great to introduce the kids, but have that funny conversation. Like, what do you think he means when he says resting slab, which is the bed? Like, it's just so funny. And to introduce this like to kids, like, what a great way. So that just makes me happy. And then the last one I have, before I get into that, I do want to do a special mention. The one book that makes me absolutely happy but was already talked about was Hyperbole and a Half, and Jennifer talked about that, I think, in her biography. But I'm obsessed with that book. I even bought my own copy. It literally sits on my desk, and when I have a bad day at work or even at, you know, whatever life goes on, I open a story and read that, like, by far. And also, we went to Florida earlier, and we were in the airport. This was like April, May. We were in the airport, and this woman was reading it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so my husband said, do not go over there, do not engage. And I was like, but I have to. So
and then you're like, did you read this part yet? Because it made you have to like cry.
Very creepily, I like went up to the back door with my mask. And I was like, hey, I really love that book. And she was like, oh my God, me too. And I was like, what story are you on? And she was on the Goose Story, by the way, which I was like, that's my favorite. And I was like, oh, yes, she has a second one. And she was like, what? Yeah. So then I sat back down, and my husband was like, I can't take you anywhere.
Yeah, there isn't a lot that would get me to talk to a stranger, but Hyperbole and a Half, I don't think I would be able to resist. I would be like,
Right. Or even Strange Planet. If I would have seen somebody reading Strange Planet, I would have been.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Good choice.
Like, we were in Atlanta, and I was like, she's reading my book. The last one that makes me so happy, and I think that will always make me happy because it's a great book, but also the bond that I have with it, like the memories I have with it. This is one that my kids would read over and over and over and over again. And there's some parts that just like make me laugh, and I'll always, we even had a party based on this book, and that book is Dragons Love Tacos by Adam Rubin. I love this book. Everything about it is amazing. The illustrations are great. The story is funny. It's a great read aloud. It's fun to be silly with because honestly, who doesn't love tacos? The story has the kid as the main character, and like when you're reading, like the reader is like, it's narrated to let the kid know, like, hey, listen, I gotta tell you, tacos are great. Dragons love them. But you got to be careful because they hate spicy salsa even more. They hate spicy green salsa, spicy red salsa, chunky salsa, smooth salsa. If the salsa is spicy at all, dragons can't stand it. And so you go on to read why dragons don't like spicy salsa. But you know, if you're gonna throw a party for dragons, you need to make sure you have a lot of tacos. They love parties, costume parties, ball parties, charades, all things, but they especially love taco parties. And if you're gonna throw a taco party, you want to make sure that you have buckets of tacos, pant loads of tacos. And the best way to judge is to get a boat and fill the boat with tacos. That's how many tacos dragons need for a taco party. After all, dragons love tacos, but they don't love spicy salsa. So you want to get, you know, mild toppings. Tomatoes, great choice. Lettuce, super. Cheese, nope. Totally mild salsa, sure, but you need to check the label because they now have spicy jalapeno peppers. And that's how my oldest used to read the book to me, because, you know, once you read it so often, they're like, oh yeah, I know this, I'll read it to you. And so he's like, totally mild salsa, now with spicy jalapeno peppers. So that's jalapeno peppers now. But so the dragons are totally digging their tacos. They eat the totally mild salsa. The kid notices the jalapeno peppers. He tries to stop them, but it's too late. And, you know, spicy salsa gives dragons the upset tummies. And then, you know, it's just a disaster. But don't worry, the story has a happy ending because this is Happiness Month. And the dragons help rebuild the kid's house with, of course, payment of tacos, mild tacos. So there's a sequel to this. It's not as good as the first one. It's good, but it's not as good as the first one.
The sequels never are. In the book world, like it's just not
they
the
really
same. And I just have to say, like, pant loads of tacos gets me every time. Pant loads, gotta have pant loads of tacos.
It really does.
Thank you.
Did you underline that, Jennifer? Or did
Yes,
Cal?
I underlined that because that's like my favorite part of the whole book.
She did.
And then Adam Rubin and Daniel Salmieri, they also did Secret Pizza Party. And I can't remember what the line is in that one, but there's another great line in that one where it's like the happy squeals or something. I don't remember, but they're fabulous.
Like happy screams or something.
Yes. Happy screams. So yeah, they're great. Probably any book by them is going to be awesome. So now for my happy titles. The first one is I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf, because I will. So let's just be honest about that. It is by Grant Snyder, who also is the creator of Incidental Comics. And if you're interested in more artwork by him, you can check him out online at Incidental Comics. And so this book is just 1- and 2-page spreads about different things about reading and writing. He also does a lot of writing comics too. And there are just so many. If you're a book lover, I think you're just going to read these. And it isn't necessarily laugh out loud comics, but they're more like, oh, I identify with that. So the title comic that he refers to is, you know, I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. So, you know, he says he would never judge a book by its cover. The spines, however, are a different story. So if you invite me over, beware, I'm going to be going to check out your bookshelf. And what does your bookshelf say about you? Are you stylish, but kind of shallow? Are you stuck in high school? And for some reason, Grant Snyder doesn't apparently like Lord of the Flies. So if you have Lord of the Flies on your shelf, he's going to be worried about you. Are you obsessively organized? That's probably me. Are you a true reader with your books? You just have so many you can't even fit them all on there. That is my son in his bedroom. And we always have to have the sad moment where we have to start saying goodbye to some books. Or are you just beyond all hope? And you don't have a bookshelf, you have, you know, your television cabinet. And he says, don't worry, this won't affect our friendship, I hope. And then he gives some suggestions for ways that you can avoid another reader's judgment. You could get a secret bookcase, which would be awesome and a dream come true. You could invent an excuse, you know, there's termites, you can't look at it. You could hire a shelf consultant. And I like that the shelf consultant is like, it needs more Proust. Apparently that's if like you want a really snobby bookshelf. You can convert to ebooks, or you can just never invite Grant over again. He won't mind, he'll be too busy reading. But if he ever invites you over, he only asks one thing. Don't judge him by his bookshelf. I just think they're just really fun. There's a lot of little cute details that are in there. And then this is one of the other ones that's in here. And it talks about the different stages of a reader. So there's that joy of discovering books and falling in love with books, and then like books become your identity, where you're overly involved with one particular book. Harry Potter for my child. And right now it's D&D guides. Like, oh my goodness, ask my child any D&D character, class, weapon, he's going to be able to tell you about it. Books as a substitute for human interaction. Yeah, I might have been there. Books as an unbearable frustration that you have to write a book, or maybe you're in college and you're so busy reading textbooks that, you know, the joy is gone. And so you have stage 6 where there's no books. You just can't do it. And then you get the joy of rediscovering books and then hoarding books. And then my favorite is the one at the end where you're passing books on to the next generation. It's one of the best parts about being a librarian, is sharing kind of your addiction with other people. So if you just enjoy a book that you're going to flip through for an hour or so and enjoy just the love of books, and also if you're a writer, he's got a lot of things in there about what it is to be a writer, pick up I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. The other book that I chose is This Book Will Make You Kinder, an empathy handbook by Henry James Garrett. And I'm going to go to I have one slide for this one. This book is not necessarily image heavy. Grant Snyder did start out as someone who created these images of animals saying unusual things. The 2 images that I chose because they're pretty funny and they're pretty sweet. Not all of them are that sweet. Some of them are really challenging. I will also say that this book isn't for kids. There are going to be some topics and language in there that you may not want your child to see. Probably once they're, you know, an older teen, this would be fine. So I love the manatee, and he lets you know, hi, my name's Hugh, and I belong to you all. I'm just here to remind you about your shared humanity. I just love that. I love Hugh. I love that he's manatee. And then the little guy on the bottom says, we all ought to be more kind. So you look at those and you think, oh, it's going to be this super sweet book. And in some ways it is. It's also a really challenging book, because not all the animals and what they have to say are as easy to digest as shared humanity or being more kind. He really looks at what it means to be kind and then asks, why aren't you kinder? And he says what typically means that we aren't kinder is that for some reason our empathy is limited. Either we don't know enough about what the other person is trying to tell us, or we aren't listening well enough. You know, we immediately assume that we know what the other person is going to say. And so we aren't kinder. Our empathy is limited. And so he talks on, there's a quote from on the other page on the left-hand side of your screen. There will always be gaps in our knowledge. None of us are ever going to know everything about everybody. But where those gaps hide people's pain from us or hide our own complicity in potentially causing that pain, we have a duty to avoid blissful ignorance. We have a duty to learn about others. We have a duty to learn about other perspectives. If we hold tight to our ignorance, we're insisting on flailing dangerously in the moral dark. And then he puts together this image that's there with the brick wall that there's you, and then there's all the stuff that you haven't learned yet, and you need to break that down. And then there's a much kinder you. So that's a really very simple understanding of this book. It's, I don't know, 150 pages or so. And if you're interested in moral philosophy at all, which I probably thought I was like, oh, I'm kind of done with that. We just need to be kind. You know, we can just be kind. It's not always that simple. And I think we know that in our everyday lives when we're presented with moments that we look back on and go, oh my goodness, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or why did I not take that moment to put myself really in that person's shoes or really to understand them? And it's not easy because you might not agree with them, but are you capable of understanding and of still being kind and learning to empathize? It's a challenging book. But if you're interested in that at all, I strongly encourage you to pick it up. It's worth a read. And it's an eye-opening book. That's what I'll say. So this book will make you kinder. The book, it makes me happy that it exists, that somebody has put this much thought into being better as a community, like what Joyce talked about. You know, people who had something were like, what can I do to make this better for my neighbors in this moment? They were kind right then. So how do we keep expanding that so that that happens more often and in more places? So that makes me happy. So thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to those of you who are sharing. And now that we're at the end, if you listened all the way to the end, I have to give a special shout out to Joyce and Kristen and Kelly, because we started this and about 20 minutes into it, I realized I didn't hit the record button. So they all got to go back and redo all that section, and they were lovely and gracious and kind and happy to do so. And I thank them for that. So we will see you in a few weeks. We're not recording for a couple weeks for the Labor Day weekend, and we'll be back with new books to talk about. Thanks. Bye.